We are doing an engine swap in our 1998 Bayliner 2855 Sierra that we're really stoked about. We pulled the big block Chevy out of it to do some transom work, and we're not going back with that motor. Let us show you what we're going back with. All right, are you dizzy? Because that made me dizzy. But look! A Duramax hanging by the cherry picker because this thing's getting ready to be broken into.
Yeah, can you put a Duramax in a boat with a Bravo 3 outdrive? We're gonna figure that out. We chose this one, it's LB7, very low miles, nothing wrong with it, ran when parked to go in the boat. We were definitely not worried about spending too much money, so we got the best one we could find. That's not true. This is the cheapest one on Facebook Marketplace. It's got 300 and something thousand miles on it. He disassembled it because he was going to do some mods to it and stuff like that, and then ended up getting another truck or something. I can't really remember the story, but he abandoned this project, so we scooped it up for 600 bucks. And I'm not scared of this because I'm like, hey, it's got a crank, it's got pistons, it'll run again. So we got to clean it up. I think we're gonna knock these pistons out because it's sitting in his garage for a while and got a little surface rust on the cylinders. So we'll hone those out, put new rings on it, and get this ready to go into a boat. We've got to deal with engine mounts. We have to deal with how to get the drive coupler bolted to a Duramax engine. C-pump, well, we got all kinds of stuff to do, but for now, I think what we should do is put all of our boat parts in a pile, the Duramax parts in a pile, and then see what we're gonna use from the boat, what we're gonna use from the Duramax, and just try to rig some stuff together.
Bottom line is, I am so excited to hear turbo diesel sounds from our boat.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm excited for that 109 gallon fuel capacity to actually be usable.
Oh yeah.
Because of that big block, I mean, it got like maybe 1 mile per gallon. There's going to be lots of questions like, will this turn enough RPM to get it up on plane, stuff like that. We'll deal with that.
Yay. So excited. Time for the oil to come out.
Yeah, if there's any left in it. I see a pretty big hole in that pan.
Nice.
Yeah, so more of the story. This was in his dad's truck and it got totaled and wrecked. So he pulled the engine so that he could rebuild it. And then I'm thinking he found a different engine, a better one that he wanted. So when I say he abandoned it, I don't mean he like gave up on it. He just found a better deal. Oil's not terrible. You still see through it.
Yeah, it's actually pretty clean.
Smells like a diesel. That smell right there. Love hate. That looks stripped out.
Yeah, it does. It looks real beat up. Might have to hammer a socket on that bad boy.
Yep.
Aaron and I have been doing diesel swaps for like 20 years.
Way longer than we've been doing YouTube.
Most of what we've done in the past are Cummins swaps, but oh, there's some really clear oil. Looks more like H2O.
Yep.
Hey there, friend.
You know, and that's my fault because it was in the back of my truck and
Yeah.
a rainstorm came in.
Yeah, this engine sat in the back of the Duramax for a few days before we were able to get it in the shop. And looks like she took a drink.
Yep.
We have enjoyed diesel swaps for a long, long time, and most of what we did was Cummins, but we also have done other diesel swaps, like in our
Yep.
Chevy Love has a little Isuzu diesel in it, but we've never done a Duramax swap. And we've been wanting to do one. And when we took the big block out of our boat and decided to put it in our 57 Chevy, we were like, what do we want to put in the boat instead? And we were like, a Duramax. I just love the sound of Duramax.
Yeah, I mean, these are excellent engines. We've owned a couple Chevys with Duramaxes in them and just love the trucks. They run so smooth, very efficient. And on the boat, I've never liked that there's gas in there. So my Malibu ski boat, no big deal. Gas engine, you turn the blower on, it evacuates, everything's cool. I've never been comfortable with sleeping downstairs and having a giant can of gas in the boat. So I've always wanted it to be diesel, and this just seems like the right thing to do because we're up for a challenge and it's exciting to us.
So many real yachts are diesel.
Actual yachts.
Dang, dude. This is sad. Ay, papi.
Yeah.
That was a lot of water, bruh.
Yep.
Oh, mama. Well, we'll just clean it real good. Yeah, it's like all the oil was drained out.
Yep. Well, there's a pretty big hickey right here. And it looks like There may be JB Weld on the aluminum part of this pan, so that may have to be replaced as well.
Well, we may need a new pan for, no, that's a pretty low profile pan. I was gonna say for clearance, but
Yeah.
pretty low
I don't think
profile.
it's going to be an issue when you look at the big block pan compared to this.
Yeah, that's true. The big block pan really dipped down low.
Yeah, where the bell housing bolts up in comparison to this actually might be more shallow.
This is gonna be an adventure.
That's right.
A boosted adventure. Okay, we are going to now move marine parts and Duramax parts in piles so that we can compare what we're going to be reusing and all the junk we took off. Marine parts.
All right, so this is all the Duramax stuff. Got the heads, starter, valve covers, bunch of bolts. It was really nice. He actually labeled all the bolts so we know where they go. Up pipes, water pump. I see the accelerator pedal over there. We're gonna need that. And then this is all the junk that was removed from that big block that made it a marine engine. We're gonna go through in a minute and I'll show you what we're gonna use, what we think we're gonna use, and what we're gonna throw away. It was cool. We actually measured that engine when we pulled it out. I bought a digital thing. Hopefully Emily can find the footage. It was 940 pounds for a 7.4 liter big block Chevy, which makes sense. Emily commented just a minute ago when she picked these exhaust manifolds up, they weigh the same as a Duramax head. I think the Duramax dressed out comes in around 850 pounds. So this thing's actually going on a little bit of a diet. We're gonna obviously add some stuff to make it marinized, but you know, I think we're gonna be in the same ballpark as far as weight, which is really cool.
Okay, let's talk about all of these marine parts that we're going to be reusing because it's only a few. First off, we're going to be reusing the C pump. That pumps water into our cooling system, and we need that. We're going to have fun mounting this to the Duramax. Next up, the bell housing, more on that later, and the drive coupler, which bolts right onto the flywheel, but this is what the input shaft from the outdrive goes into. That's amazing, and everything else is going to be on sale on eBay. You can buy it, we'll sign it for you, or you know, paint it Chevy orange, and I don't know. Anyway, that is really fun because we took so much heavy stuff off this engine. As Aaron mentioned, I feel like these manifolds are heavier than the Duramax heads. Maybe we'll weigh them and see, but yeah, I mean, this dang thing was so heavy and we've lightened it up a whole bunch, dropped it in the 57 chassis. And if you hadn't watched that episode, it's probably the episode before this one, you should go watch it because that's gonna be a really cool swap too. Yeah, what's up next, Aaron?
Well, we'll dig those parts out, make a new pile, put the other stuff in the corner so it can collect some dust.
No, we're gonna sell it, babe, for
Oh.
more car parts. Yeah, that's literally all we're gonna be reusing. How cool is that? Pretty dang cool. So Aaron just realized that we can use the scale by hand and just hook this stuff and measure the weight so we can actually see what's heavier. Okay, we have the intake manifold.
Half of the intake manifold.
Oh, that's true, only this intersection.
43 pounds, just for that piece.
Okay. And this is the top of the manifold.
Another 18 pounds.
18 and a half. Here's one of the heavy dudes.
Yeah.
Exhaust manifold. Oh my gosh. 57 and a half pounds. Oh, it said 58 and a half right at the end, but
Yeah. So we won't measure the other one because it's just the same.
58 and a half pounds. I just calculated those items and that's 117 pounds.
But you have two manifolds.
Yeah, I calculated 2 of the exhaust manifolds. Wow. Okay, now one of the Duramax heads. 42 pounds, yeah.
Are you guys ready to see how we're gonna mount the Bravo 3 to a Duramax? Because I think I've got it figured out.
Knocker loose may do the trick.
Yeah, it may. Just a little love tap. Now the trick is gonna be breaking these loose, trying to get this to not turn. So I think I'm gonna run a bolt through here and let it catch on the inside part of that bell housing. Then we can hit it with the breakover bar. So what I did is I ran a bolt through this flywheel into a piece that, this is like webbed back here. So I got it bottomed out on something. Hopefully we don't break it, but Emily's gonna try to hold it upright while I try to break them loose.
Should I lift? That happened fast. I was gonna say, should I try and lift up on it a little bit to put a little pressure with the cherry picker?
Just hold on to that turbo.
Kick it, babe.
Yeah.
Like a ninja.
Yeah. This reminds me of main bolts on like a C15 Cat or an old Cummins. They torqued to so much I'd use my legs to get them tight because my arms just weren't big enough.
He kicks like a mule, folks.
That's the truth. Yeah, when I say I used my legs to tighten main bearings, our wrench was huge, our torque wrench. And so I would bear hug it and then put my legs against the leaf spring and pull back on it to get it to click. Some of those went up to 500 foot-pounds. You can imagine my skinny butt in there trying to do it. I love working on this compared to that big block. Working on gas engines, I'm looking at everything going, man, that's so chinchy. How's that going to work? Because that's a bolt that holds, I mean, you've got 8 of them here that just hold that flywheel on. Yep.
All right, the bolts are out.
Bolts are out. Time for a pry bar.
Want me to catch it? Literally. I was going to say you want me to catch it. That was a really dumb question.
Yeah, with the concrete's for to cushion the fall.
Yeah.
This is what I had my bolt into, from this webbing down here.
Wasn't going to catch.
All right. Out with the old and in with the new. We got a surprise here. Yes. That is pretty. And yes, that cost 3 times what we paid for the engine.
Oh my gosh, y'all. This thing
Yep.
is so nice.
Now, in my research, what I've learned is that the bell housing is going to be the same bolt pattern. It's the same on a small block Chevy, big block Chevy, even your old inline 6s. Chevy's great, they didn't change that stuff up. So our bell housing should bolt to it. But the big problem was the flywheel. If you know diesels, you know almost all Duramaxes came with automatic transmission, so they had a flex plate. So we needed a flywheel, and specifically one that would bolt to a Mercruiser drive coupler. And this company, PPE, actually makes this part. They also make some of the exhaust parts we're going to use. We'll show you those later on when we get them in, but this is like the main piece. I was like, engine mounts I can do. I can build them out for the C-pump. I can do any of that. But getting this to bolt up and have it be spaced right and everything, this piece just saves me so much time. We're going to put it on there, see if it all works today.
This billet flywheel is so sick. It is machined out of solid billet steel, and it's drilled specially for the Mercruiser and IMCO and BAM transmission drive adapters. In the factory where they build these, they fully balance them to OEM specs. So we have a lot of faith in this unit, and we are so excited that PPE wanted to work together on it. They make some amazing diesel, marine swap components, and we're so excited to be using some of them. Good stuff.
All right, now that we got the flywheel mocked in there, it is time to put the drive coupler on. These holes appear to be a 3/8. I checked the flywheel, and that's a 7/16 by 20, so it's fine thread. So I drilled these out to 7/16. What this does is it drives the coupler. That's why they called it that. It's just a kind of a rubber thingy-majig that dampens it, I guess. And I didn't get enough bolts because my local hardware store didn't have enough, but that's okay because we're just mocking this up to make sure everything's going to work. So I haven't researched yet, but I assume that there's supposed to be a lineup tool that goes in there to make all this perfect, but we'll find that out when we put it on permanently. I'm going to grab that bell housing and see if it goes on there. I can see we're missing a dowel over here, so we'll have to get that before we put it together for the last install. Look at that. It's perfect.
That is so cool.
Mm-hmm.
GM was smart to do that.
Yep.
Very considerate.
Mm-hmm. So that's it. That is the most menacing thing that we're going to deal with, I think. That's on. I can see here by where it was riding before, our coupler's at the exact same place. It's really cool because this rear bell housing has our motor mounts at the back. So none of that's going to change. So we just adjust the front motor mounts to where this fits. When we get that lineup shaft in there, make sure everything's straight, then we'll adjust the front motor mounts to that. And the basics of the engine are bolted in. We got to deal with exhaust. We have to deal with so many things, but the heart of it will be bolted in. So that's really cool. I came up with this, I sourced the parts, I did lots of reading, lots of measuring, and to have it actually on there is just like a big sigh of relief.
You wanted to see if the starter would bolt on.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
I mean, none of the new parts get in the way of that. Like,
So my concern was this lip, if it wasn't exactly the same for the starter, but it is. It's perfect. So that's going to work just fine. This is our engine mount off of the boat, came off the big block. I've already looked at this side and it's awesome because we have bosses right there and right there. Those top two already line up. The bottom one's going to be a little bit different. So my plan is to get a steel plate, like maybe a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch, and just make me a plate that bolts to these three. So effectively, the plate on the top would be sandwiched between here with these two bolts. The bottom one, we'll have to work that out and decide where that's going to bolt to. So that's going to work pretty easy on this side. The other side, I think it's gonna be about the same. Just get a plate, cut the plate out, and then bolt this to the plate and then the plate to this. Should work out just fine. So our engine mounts, where they bolt down on the stringers. Originally on the big block, the center of it would have been 18 inches, which puts me right here in a provision on the block that's going to be an issue. And also I may need that area for the C pump. But the cool thing is the stringer is just a flat piece of wood that runs under the engine. So the part that bolts to the boat itself can easily be slid, and it might actually be a good idea because we get into new wood. We're not dealing with those old holes that have been in there for however long that's been, 25 years now. So I think this one's going to come back to about right there, and we'll grab a flat piece of steel and bolt it up here, 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 and here, and then this will bolt to that flat plate out about like that right there. So one thing I'm noticing right now as I look down this, that oil pan sump might get into that stringer. If this is the center line of it, you got to imagine your stringer comes the inside a little bit, it's going to hit that pan. So I think by us not doing the stringers yet, we may have lucked out, because had we done it, we'd have to redesign them anyways. Good to see that.
We got some CAD going on here. Cardboard aided design, super high tech.
Obviously I'm just eyeballing this, but we're working with about 30 inches. And if you remember on that big block, it just barely came out of the engine bay. We lifted it up, turned it sideways and pulled it out, and it barely made it out. So we just want to make sure this isn't too wide. Obviously if we have to, we can put the exhaust manifolds on later once we get the engine down in there, but let's see what we're looking at for big block width. Okay, to the edge of the head on both sides, we're at 25 inches. But remember, we've got those giant manifolds that came off of it.
The manifolds are huge.
So we're gonna look at those. 5 inches per side. So that's 10 inches. Do the math, that's a 35-inch wide engine. So we're actually down 5 inches with the Duramax. So it's narrower. We already know it's lighter. I think we're good to go. We're right where the bell housing bolts up, back here. We're looking at 20, let's just call it 28. And we're 28 in the same place. Maybe 29. We'll call it 29 because that harmonic balancer's got to go on there. And we definitely had at least an inch in front of that engine. There was actually quite a bit of room. So physically, it's going to fit down the engine bay.
We just went through that green box of wiring, and this is our main harness. And this is the one we're going to have sent off to be modified to be a standalone unit. So this is going to be really great. This is something we may wait a time for to be modified. Not sure how long it's going to take, but part of the process, and pretty much the last thing we can do until we actually start installing this in the boat. Yay!
So I finished cutting the motor mounts out, and after that I popped some holes in it and put them on here to see where it's all going to line up. And I'm very happy with the way this is going to work. So on this top hole, I managed to get into the factory boss. And of course I put my plate on here, here. I've got, I believe, 3 bolts in this one. And then we'll go and put a hole in here and use a nut and a bolt on this side. So this one's real simple. In there, I'm happy with it. And it appears to be in a very similar place to where the mounts were on the big block. On the other side, it got a little bit more complicated, but still is gonna work just fine. Over here, we got 2 factory bolts in it, but the bottom one is wanting to almost line up with the boss on the block. So I'm gonna have to figure out a way to get a stud to come through here and put on that. But that's simple, guys. I mean, no crazy fabrication, just cut a plate of metal. My biggest concern was, this is your oil cooler, and this is a tube that comes from the water pump. And so if we put that in there, this tube is kind of shaped, like, yeah, they kind of shaped it for some clearance stuff. Here's our water pump. Okay, so that's on. We have clearance, plenty of room between here, and plenty of room for that stud to come up, because this stud, it's really long, so you can drive it up and down with the nut, so you can align everything. Not gonna be an interference issue, so I'm happy with that. I think we'll take a couple measurements and then head on back to the boat so we can see if everything's gonna fit. So we'll go to top of the turbo, because I have concerns that that engine bay is not deep enough. We'll call that 3 foot, and that gives us plenty of extra. And we'll go across our motor mounts. Just eyeballing it, of course. We're at about 23 inches there and 17 inches to the bell housing. We'll go look at the boat, see how those stringers are gonna line up. I know we're gonna have an issue with this oil pan. Well, I don't know we are. There's potential for issue for the oil pan right there. All we can do is go measure stuff. That way we know where to go next. Make some notes, and we're gonna hit the road. Got it?
Got it. So we are back at the boat, and it is time for some measurements.
Yeah.
We've got our notes, and our sweet little Kusa board is just hanging out here, curing, ready for some glass work.
Okay, the new engine showed to be 23 inches between the two motor mounts. So if I run a tape, center that bolt, we're at exactly 23 inches. So the way we're gonna deal with this is those engine mounts, I didn't get them in the exact location as far as front to back of the engine. There's no way. So these just have screws that run down through them, big bolts that are self-threading. And this is all wood underneath here. So we're gonna be able to slide these front and back based on where those line up on the engine. But I did take measurements. So from the rear of the bell housing to the center of the bolt is 17 inches. That gets us right there. If you think about all the stuff that bolts up back there, that's probably about right for where it needs to be. So I'm sure these are gonna move, but they're not gonna move much. So that's really exciting. When we're fabbing stuff up of cars, you know, we've got to like weld pieces in the frame, notch frame, stuff like that. This is real easy. Just unbolt this, move it where you need it, and bolt it back down. So that's super cool. My next biggest concern was that turbo sits right on top of the engine. And so I'm afraid it's going to get into this, and we're going to have to fab like a bulge there for a turbo, and that would not be ideal. So we got 33 inches high. That puts us right here. So we've got about, it looks like the top of our turbo, and if you remember when I measured it in the shop, I ran it up. We've got about 2 to 3 inches to play with. So this area, you might get a little toasty with that turbo being right there, but we'll deal with that later on.
Will it be right there, or will it be closer to the center of the engine cover?
Closer to the center, but I'm measuring from the oil pan.
Gotcha.
You know, the oil pan's got to be up here. So next measurement is this. In between our stringer, we're looking at 18 inches. The reason that's important is because on a Duramax, the oil pan kicks off to one side. I was concerned that we may have to notch this out and then build up on this side. But so far it looks like it's going to work. The oil pan was definitely inside of the motor mount, and this goes right along the side of it. So I think it's going to fit in there without any more fab work. That's pretty exciting.
So we would rebuild our stringers in the same format they're in.
Yeah, absolutely. If we rebuild them, they're pretty solid up here. I just had a little bit of nastiness, like probably that much of the board's rotten here at the back, but it gets good like right here. So that's a question for any of you guys that have done this kind of work. Can I tie into a stringer? Do I have to go ahead and replace all of it? Or can I cut back a little bit, use the Kusa board and tie into that and somehow secure it together? I don't know how that stuff works. I will do some research, and in the meantime, if you guys could tell me what you would do, that would be very, very helpful.
Yeah, we have a lot of experts.
Yeah.
People that have worked in marine, and we would love to hear y'all's feedback and your guidance.
Absolutely. And if you tell me I have to, I'll cut all this fiberglass off and put Kusa board on all this, which may be a good idea anyways, but...
Our engine's lighter though, and it's like...
It is lighter. If I do that, you know, if I don't replace all of it, I've got wicking, or what do they call it? It's the epoxy that absorbs into the wood, where I could just make some holes in here and strengthen all this up. That's kind of what I was planning on doing, but I need to know how to tie these in back here.
I love it. Oh, it's gonna look so cool in here, man.
Yes, it is.
So, before we know it, this engine bay is gonna have a Duramax in it, and we are so freaking stoked on that. It's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, we've been thinking about this for, I don't know, 6 months at least. When it first popped in my head, that was a viable option. And it's not until you get all the pieces bolted together, start taking measurements, if you know, is it gonna work or not? I mean, to be honest with you, I was willing to cut some fiberglass out to get that down in here and then refiberglass stuff. So knowing that that's not gonna have to happen makes me extremely excited. Now it's just a matter of doing what I already know how to do, which is build an engine.
Yeah.
Just gotta rebuild that thing, get it ready to go, get the ECM harness in. I've got to get an ECM as well. If you guys know where an ECM is, I could use one for a LB7. And then fix the stringers, glass it in, and shoot, man, it'll be time to start water testing this thing.
Dude, I cannot freaking wait. We're so excited to hear y'all's feedback too. We read all the comments. So if y'all have constructive criticism, ideas, guidance, if you've done this before, we couldn't find many people online that had done it before and at least documented the process. So we're hoping to kind of be that for some folks if they want to do Duramax swaps on boats. And as y'all know, we don't pose ourselves as experts at all. So y'all grow along with us and watch us learn. And we like it that way. So
Yeah.
we're so grateful.
One more thing.
Yeah.
Because this is going to come up in the comment section.
What?
the cooling for the diesel engine. Putting a turbo in an enclosed area like this, we have solutions for that. They make water jacketed up pipes. They make a water jacketed turbo stand, and then we'll pump water into the exhaust as well. That's dealt with. It's not 100% ironed out, but that's the direction we're going. So we will be safe.
It's going to be pretty awesome. And we cannot wait to see y'all on the next episode. See you soon.